Ever since the release of Zani and Cardathea, one question has plagued the mind of every single person who's asking to get a DPS. Do they need their signature support in order to function? And of course, Aemeath has not been any different, with people accusing her of needing Lynae to actually be good. But in this video, I'm going to explain why this is not true at all. And in reality, it all comes down to one character that's going to be on the same banner as Aemeath, which is going to be Lupa. Yes, this is just another Lupa Glaze video in disguise, I know. I've been very vocal about how I believe that Lupa is one of the strongest characters in the entire game, simply because she does one crucial thing. She trivializes the entire fusion meta. I would go as far as to say that since the release of Lupa, the fusion element simply just has not been the same, and it's been entirely dominated by this one character, because, frankly, this character gives an absolutely stupid amount of buffing. And this absolutely insane amount of buffing has led Lupa to become the best in slot character with every single fusion DPS that's currently in the game. Lupa gives 24% fusion damage bonus on her signature weapon, 15% on her signature set, and an additional 20% from her ultimate, leading to a total of 59% damage bonus, 6% attack, which stacks up to 3 times, ultimately totaling up to 18% attack, and then of course you have her outro skill, which gives 20% fusion damage amplification, as well as 25% basic attack damage amplification, and let's not forget her inherent skill that gives 15% fusion resistance ignore. And this is the real powerhouse of her kit that not enough people are talking about. Resistance in WuWa is absurdly powerful, so giving you the option to ignore a portion of that resistance is one of the most powerful effects that a character can give, and Lupa giving it to all fusion damage, just with the requirement of being in a mono fusion team, makes her just one of the best buffers in the entire game. However, Lupa does not give these buffs just entirely for free, because she does have some restriction within her kit. Her attack buff requires intro skills to get stronger, ultimately meaning that if you're using her as a second slot, you're only getting 12% attack on your main DPS. Her 20% fusion damage bonus has the condition of being in a mono fusion team, and her fusion resistance ignore effect also gets a lot more powerful within a mono fusion team. So she does have the restriction of really wanting to be in a mono fusion team. However, the thing is, Lupa herself is fusion, and then the DPS you want to use her with is also going to be fusion. So that's already 2 out of 3. So what about the third character? Well, we just got Mornia, a universal healer who just so happens to be fusion. Which means that every single fusion DPS in the game is able to very easily create a mono fusion team to use Lupa in. And this fact has made Lupa the best in slot support for every single fusion character currently in the game. Chongli wants to run Brant and Lupa, Encore wants to run Lupa and Mornia, Galbrenna wants to run Lupa and Mornia, Brant will run Lupa and Mornia. This core is absurdly powerful, and it's even power-crept dedicated support characters like Cho Yuen within a Galbrenna team. It's honestly just kind of absurd how many buffs this character gives, and the conditionals behind it are incredibly easy to get. If you skipped Mornia, Lupa does lose quite a bit of value, because making a mono fusion team will become a lot harder. However, you do still have the option of running Brant and Lupa as your core, which is still going to be more than solid enough. But that's enough talking about Lupa in a vacuum. Let's talk a bit about Lupa for Aemeath, because Aemeath is going to be her own special case. Here's the thing, Aemeath's best support is going to be Lynae, and Lynae is the best sub-DPS in the entire game right now. Lynae gives so much buffing that she's able to fit into an ungodly amount of teams, and the best part about it is that almost all of it is generalist. But 2 aspects of her kit are going to be used especially well by Aemeath, being the liberation damage increase on her outro skill, as well as her tune break boost increase. So this means that Aemeath is going to use Lynae exceptionally well, and we've already established that Lynae is an absolutely absurd character. 15% universal amplification, 25% liberation damage amplification, 40 tune break boost, 30% attack, and if you're using her signature weapon, you're getting 58% damage bonus. It's no mistake that Lynae is absolutely busted. And I believe a part of the reason of why Lynae ended up becoming such a powerful character is because Lupa is incredibly stiff competition. They ended up failing for Galbrenna, despite giving Galbrenna a mechanic that entirely exists just to shield Choyuan. And even with that mechanic, Lupa ended up taking the win in the end. So they had to make Lynae absolutely absurd to keep up with Lupa. And I will say that they most likely did succeed. Just look at how many other characters Lynae has managed to power creep. There is absolutely no way Lynae is not Aemeath's best in slot. But people underestimate the sheer strength of Lupa. Because here's the thing, there is no doubt in my mind that Aemeath is going to be the Toonbreak DPS. They made Cardathea to be the negative status DPS, so they're gonna try to make Aemeath the Toonbreak DPS. And because of this, Aemeath's best in slot is almost definitely going to be Mornia. You see where I'm going here? She's already using Mornia in her team, and she herself is Fusion. This gives Lupa the perfect opportunity to sneak into her team. A Lupa Mornia team is most likely going to be a lot better than a Lynae and Shorekeeper team for Aemeath, thus meaning that Lupa has, in some twisted way, still managed to define the entire element of Fusion. Because even when she isn't the best in slot, she's still strong enough to justify not getting the actually dedicated support. Do I suggest this? Absolutely not. Lynae is a broken character, she's absolutely stupid. So if it's a question for value on your account, Lynae is going to absolutely demolish Lupa either way. But if you don't have Lynae, and you're wondering whether Aemeath is going to be a good character for you, you're easily going to be able to use Lupa, and that's the entire point. Aemeath does not require Lynae the same way that Cardathea requires Shikona, or the same way that Zani requires Phoebe. Another big difference to keep in mind between Toonbreak and Negative Status is that Negative Status got characters entirely dedicated purely to applying the effect. If you're using Shikona without her signature weapon, the biggest utility that she's giving you is the Air Erosion application and the Air Erosion damage increase. Meanwhile, Lynae functions a lot more like a traditional sub-DPS. If you're putting Lynae in your team, it's in order to buff the stats of your main DPS. And while she does apply the Toon Rupture or Toon Strain shifting status effects, she is most likely not going to be required in order to do this, because the real utility behind a Lynae is the stats that she's going to be giving you. If Cardathea had free access to Air Erosion at all times, Shikona would not really have a reason to exist. But if Aemeath herself is able to apply the shifting status effect, then Lynae still has value due to her stat buffing. So I do believe that Aemeath is going to be fully capable of applying the shifting status herself, ultimately making it so Lynae is not actually required in the team in order to trigger any sort of Toon Rupture or Toon Strain effect. And while Lynae is going to be an increase for the team, because she buffs Toon Break boost and all of her ridiculous stat buffing, she's ultimately not required in order for the DPS to function. This of course opens up the window for a character like Lupa to enter your team. So ultimately, do I believe that Aemeath is going to require Lynae? Absolutely not, and it's simply because Lupa is absolutely absurd. If it weren't for Lupa's existence, I believe this would be an entirely different conversation. Universal characters are incredibly important to the health of Wuthering Waves. Kuro doesn't seem to want to release 4 stars, so what they're gonna have to do is increase the amount of universal characters we're getting to make it so players have more safe pulls. But that's going to be an entirely different video. For now, we're just gonna end on the conclusion that no, Aemeath does not need Lynae simply because Lupa is a broken character. But that's just my opinion. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. And while you're down there, be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. If you have any questions, be sure to join my Discord, which is linked in the description. And if you just want to see more of me, you can check out my second channel, which is also linked in the description. But that'll be all from me. Peace.